Hi, can you check? Can you present? I think I changed the setting.
Yeah, I can't, maybe because you are sharing the screen right now. It says, I saw a message that I got moderator access, but maybe you need to stop sharing for us to share.
Yeah, yes, definitely. Like when I stop sharing, it will be. I think we can. You will sharing.
Yeah, if you want to test it real quick, you can stop sharing so we can both, like the rest of us can test our screen sharing real quick.
Okay, definitely. I will stop sharing now.
Okay, Kevin, you want to go first? I do see the share screen button
Yeah,
now.
I see it now. All right, let me take a look at it. Yep, I can share my screen.
Yeah, I have permission also. I mean, I can, yeah.
Great.
I just want to say here too, I can share.
Hi, Madonna.
Hello.
Hey, Madonna.
Hello. It's amazing to be here. Nice way to hang out.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Yeah. I don't know where my camera is up there. Okay, perfect. Cool.
Can you say something? No, it doesn't matter if I should be. You should unmute. You should unmute you. Hello, everyone. I think we will start our conference soon, and we have. I'm sorry, we have some issue about the speaker, and we were still looking at it. So if you guys cannot hear it, there's a good chance you guys can sit in the first row, and then we all can hearing the speaker talk. So. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sharon, and I'm the GDSC lead at Earlham College. GDSC stands for Google Development Student Club, and welcome back to GDSC for some of them, and also welcome to Earlham College. I'm delighted to welcome you to the GDSC DevFest Conference. It's a truly an honor to have each of you here today. Our journey through this DevFest, I promise, will be excited and enlightening. We have 3 different topics, and to learn more about Google products and your passion for technologies and innovation. And to our speaker, thank you for us to join us and through the virtually, and we can wait to hear you all sharing your expertise and insight. To our members and participants, I think it's a perfect and a good opportunity to embrace and to learn and to connect and grow. So we will take this moment to know more about the Google product and the GDSC and DevFest, and also in the future how we can have more connection with the Google and how you can learn in the Google. First, I will wish you guys have an enriched and enjoyable experience, and then we will start our conference. A little bit detail of me is my name is Sharon. I using she, her pronouns. I double major in neuroscience and computer science at Earlham College. and we would like to know more about our speakers. So please take this opportunity to share a bit yourself, like your name, your interest, or what drive you here, or like any memorable experience. Can
Madonna or Chen Chen, you want to go first?
Sure, I can go first. Why not? Okay. My name is Madonna Wampua, and it's an honor to be here today. I am always delighted and happy to support local groups and communities. So it's amazing to see you all there. So hi. So it's sad I'm not able to be there in person. But other than that, I am an Android engineer and I recently just founded my company. I'm building a pretty cool product. And as we speak, it's part of which I was building. So I do enjoy being able to sit down and write code and also be out there and connect to the community because I feel like that is something we need. And I can talk about this more during my session. But yeah, I'm so excited to be here and thank you for inviting me.
Well, thank you so much. Chen Chen, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure, I'll hop in. My name is Chang Chang, and I work with large language models and AI safety. I've actually been interested in AI for a long time, so it's fun to see when it's coming back. My original background was linguistics and computer science, and I also have a master's in computer science as well. What's memorable? Oh, I don't know. There's so much stuff going on. I actually also did take a long break to homeschool my kids. So that's kind of what brings me back here is combining technology and education and just love sharing it with the world. And that's me.
Thank you, Chen Chen. It's welcome to your back to the school. Around college is a little college, liberal school. So I think it will be a huge difference with what you hosting before. So Kevin, do you like to share a little bit yourself?
Yeah, totally. So first of all, thank you so much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to share stage with Madonna and Chang Chang. My name is Kevin Blanco. I'm based in San Jose, Costa Rica. I am a senior developer relations advocate, and I work for a company called AppSmith. AppSmith is a no-code and low-code platform to build applications for all kind based upon your existing data sources. I'm also a Google developer expert in Google Cloud Platform. I'm a certified Google Cloud architect, and yeah, some hobbies, some interests. I am a filmmaker. I enjoy and work as filmmaker, and I'm also a private pilot. That's something that I do on my free time. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be here and share some of the knowledge with you all.
Well, thank you, Kevin. So our next slide is agenda. I want to give you guys a quick big picture about what we will do for this section. So first, our speaker will be the Kevin, and he will talk about the Google Cloud. And next will be Madonna talking about the Android apps. And also the last one, but not the least, will be Chen Chen talking about the large language modeling. And the last session will be our Q&A. So you guys can take a note when you listen in the speech. And then in the last 20 minutes, we will know what you can asking about. Each topic is really broad, so it will be good. You can take a note during the section, during the talk. And now I will stop sharing. And then Kevin, you can sharing your screen. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And let me share my screen. All right. Can anyone see the screen? Yeah. All good? Perfect. So yeah, thank you so much. Like I said, I'm Kevin Blanco. It's a pleasure to be here. Senior developer advocate in AppSmith, like I said, developer expert in Google Cloud, certified Google Cloud architect, and enjoy making films and flying airplanes. Feel free to follow me in social media, connect. I'm super happy to talk to people right after I give speeches or conferences. It's really nice to get feedback. If you enjoy or do not enjoy what I'm going to say, also feel free to reach out. And like I said, I love to connect with all of you. Before I get started, I actually wanted to ask a question to all of you, to see if I'm the only one who feel overwhelmed. I wanted to ask you if you feel overwhelmed about the amount of technology, platforms, library, and the increase of artificial intelligence. Like, do you feel that you can't keep with it at all? Because I feel that way. And if you do as well, I wanted to share a mindset that helps me back on track and avoid like the imposter syndrome and the anxiety, which is to ask to myself, what is my mission? Is my mission to learn and know everything, every single little thing that it's out there in the wild, or is it something else? And for me, our mission and your mission should be to solve problems. At the end, that's what I do every day, and that's what probably all of you are doing or going to be doing in your day-to-day life. It's just to solve problems. And how do you do that? By enabling innovation. And that's something very powerful when I think about it that way, because it means that no matter what your level is, at what your career, or no matter what the size of your contribution is, no matter how much you know about it, if you can solve a problem with the best solution that requires the least amount of code or the least amount of implementation, or the least amount of resources, it means that you are fine and you're helping the world to move forward. So that's actually a mindset that helps me, like, for example, calm when I feel like anxious, like, oh my God, I need to know all of these things that is going out there. No, just back on track, focus on solving problem and the problem that I have in the following days. So the way I approach problem solving is by enabling innovation, like I said, and not reinventing the wheel, and utilizing the existing resources and tools and platforms that are out there, and filling the gaps that these pieces of technology left behind to solve my specific problem. And that, again, is a powerful statement and mindset that helps you to move forward. So today, my goal is to give you some tools, just a very few number of possible solutions that you can leverage to build applications that fill gaps and solve business problems. Does that sound good? Or does it sound interesting to you? And if it does, so please buckle up, and I'm going to show you some real cool stuff that it's really easy to use and implement to build apps that fill gaps and solve business problems. So those two things is Duet AI and AppSheet. Again, this is just a couple of things. There's multiple things out there, and probably Madonna and Cheng are going to talk more about other things, but I wanted to focus today on these two things only. So the first thing is Duet AI. So what is Duet AI? So basically is a tool that through natural language chat interfaces, you can quickly chat with Duet AI to get answers to cloud questions or receive guidance and best practices. Duet AI is specifically trained on Google Cloud content like documentation, sample codes, and best practices to help serve the users better. So conversational assistance is available on the console and IDEs such as Visual Studio Code and JetBrains IntelliJ or Android Studio, for etc., and also Google Cloud extensions. So if you are writing apps or calling APIs or querying data, or just trying to get your head around Google in general terms, Duet AI can help you complete your code while you write it or regenerate code blocks or comments. Code assistance is available, like I said, in multiple IDEs like Visual Studio, JetBrains IDEs, like WebStorms or PyCharm or Golang or even Android Studio, and also like Cloud Shell extension. And it's going to help us answer questions about all of the different products in Google Cloud. Also, Duet AI supports more than 20 programming languages, including Go, Java, JavaScript, Python, and SQL. So in general terms, Duet AI is your companion. It's like, for example, your co-pilot, or you're doing pair programming. It's basically something. It's a tool that's going to help you do the things much faster without you having to go back or having to learn every single little thing in your head. So that's really cool. So one of the cool stuff that I'm going to focus in relationship to Duet AI is that it also powers workspace applications. So, like I said, Google Duet AI can help you to build an entire infrastructure in Google Cloud, but I'm not going to focus on that specifically today. I'm just going to focus on how it powers workspace apps. And you can learn more about it. You can search in Google about it. But for example, you will see more and more how Duet AI is going to help you to answer emails, to create a presentation in Google Slides, to create maybe a Google Sheet with data on it, and so on and so forth. But one of the applications that are part of Google Workspace is Google App Sheet. And I don't know if you have never heard about it. Probably no, or maybe yes. I didn't a few years ago. But Google App Sheet is a no-code and low-code platform acquired by Google that allows users to create mobile and web applications without extensive code knowledge. It enables individuals with varying technology backgrounds to build custom applications by defining data sources, workflows, and user interfaces throughout a visual interface. So with AppSheet, you can turn Google Sheets, for example, into a powerful app, connecting to various data sources and automating business processes. So long story short, you don't have to know a lot about programming because this no-code and low-code tool is going to help you to build what you need. So one of the benefits is rapid development. Again, no-code and low-code platforms empowers users to quickly build and deploy applications. It's accessible because it democratizes app development, enables individuals with non-technical backgrounds to actively contribute to the creation of applications. It's also cost-effective because, it's reducing the amount of time and resources that it's needed to build something meaningful that, again, going back to what I said at the beginning, solves a business problem. And at the end, that's what it matters. That's what we have to focus. It also is really great for interactive prototyping and easy modification because like you can drag and drop components, you can connect to your databases or even your Google Sheet data source, and you can build a whole application in Google App Sheet. But that's not all. The thing is, Duet AI, like I said here, it's powering AppSheet, and we can easily use all of the large language algorithms to ask what we need. Duet AI is already trained in Google AppSheet and is going to build something meaningful for us. And that's what I wanted to show you. So I'm going to show you a demo, and you can follow up later on if you want to give it a shot. You can later on follow up and try it yourself. So like I said, Duet AI in AppSheet, it's a workspace application. So it's just like using, for example, Gmail or using any of the Google Drive products out there. And one of the things you can do is when you have that installed, you can chat with it as it is a conversation that you have with somebody on your team. So once it's installed, you will see it here under chat, right on Gmail, and you will be able to have a conversation with it. So I'm going to say here, hello, and I'm going to build an application. Like I said, I love filmmaking. I love to produce films. And let's say that I need to create an application to manage all of the assets of the production company that I have: cameras, light equipment, audio, etc. And I need an application that manage assets for my team, and so people can request these assets. So let's say that a production team is going to be recording a film or maybe a short movie in whatever place. They can use this application to request the utilization of those assets, and somebody is going to be reviewing those requests and approving those requests. So I'm going to ask for that specifically that I need here right on the chat. So let me make this bigger so you can all see it. And I'm going to say, hey, I have a movie asset company for camera and light equipment. I need an app to manage the assets and a way for my team to request one of these assets. Each asset has a name, a description, a type, a location, and a picture. So I have to tell it what I need. This is like a prompt, and I need to be really specific about what I want. Also, we have employees. Employees have a name, email address, and a role. They should fill a form that explains why they are requesting that asset and where they're going to be using it and a return date. So that's what I'm going to say. And Duet AI is going to analyze my prompt and is going to tell me a proposal. It's going to say, all right, here's the proposal that I give you. I'm going to create an application called Asset Management System, and this is the tables that I'm going to create for you. It looks like it's creating the employee table, the requests table, and the assets table. And that's great, but I can go back and just take a look and make sure that it is the way that I need. So I'm going to see, all right, it's creating the name, it's creating the email as an email, and then the role as a number. I mean, the role doesn't make any sense to be a number, so I can change it here. Let's say that a role is going to be a list, so people can select their role. And it's going to ask me what type of roles can people have as the employees. So I'm going to say there might be directors, there might be gaffers, and there might be, I don't know, let's just say camera owners. Just an example of some roles here. Cool. Now let's go to the other one, the assets. It looks like there's going to be an asset ID, an employee ID, a reason for requesting the asset, a location for that asset. Reason shouldn't be a number. It should be a long text, and location, let's say, is going to be a address field, and return date is okay to be a datetime. Now, I could be more specific when I made the prompt and say, I want the location to be a math field. I want the reason to be a text field. So as you can see, if you are very specific, it's going to give you something more accurate. But the cool thing is that you can just review and make sure that things make sense. And here for the asset, we have name as a name, the screenshot long text, type is going to be, again, a number. I don't want them to be a number. It's going to be a text, a list. And location is going to be a address. And for the type, let's say we're going to have cameras, we're going to have audio, we're going to have lights and stands. It's just an example. I can be more specific. And just like that, it looks like it looks pretty much to what I need. So I'm going to say next, which is going to say notifications. This is one of the most powerful things that AppSheet has. So I can set up notifications when something happens. For example, when a new request is created, or when an asset is returned back, or when a new employee is created, etc. You can create any notification depending on any action. So I'm going to say that I want a notification when a request is created, and hit save. So here, Duet AI is going to give me a breakdown, a summary, and I'm going to say, yes, it all looks pretty good. Let's create the application. And it's going to take me to AppSheet, as you can see, and it's going to create everything that I tell. It's going to create the data structures, it's going to create the views, the pages, the configuration, the notifications, and everything for me. Now, again, you could go to AppSheet, create a blank application yourself, and create all of this without having to program anything. Again, it's a drag and drop type of functionality, and you can define roles, you can define workflows, all in a visual manner. And here it is. It created some stuff for us. So let's take a look at it. The first thing is here on the left, we'll see, and let me make this bigger so you can all see it. We have data. This is where we can see that it actually created the structure that we asked for it. So as you can see, it created the assets, the employees, and the requests, and all of this, it has the structure that we asked for. Then we have the views. Here, the views is where we actually build what the end user is going to see when they visit our application. We have pages, and under the pages, we have navigations, and we have data. So in this case, it created 3 pages, one for the requests, so people can see the requests, and created the assets, so you can see and create new assets, and the same thing for employees. Then we have the actions. Here, the actions is how we define what's going to happen when somebody does something. So, for example, one action could be when somebody creates a new request. When somebody clicks on the location of an asset, open a map and show that location. So, for example, this is one of those actions. When somebody clicks on the location of an asset, show it on a map. Then we have automation. Here's what you program the different actions depending on webhooks. Remember that we ask for a notification via email when a new request was created. This is where it happens. So as you can see here, when a request record is created, updated, or deleted, is going to run this action, which is send an email. And that's the end of the action. And you can create new actions. You can create whatever new automation actions the way you want. So now that it's done, we can actually test it out. AppSheet is going to create some test data. So for example, this request here doesn't really make any sense. It's just sample tests. So I'm going to, some sample requests. So I can, as you can see, delete all of them with no problem. Then we can go back to employees and assets. So I'm going to create a new employee here, and I'm going to create myself. And as you can see, it has the fields that we asked at the beginning, the name, the email, and the role. So this is me, and I'm a director, and I'm going to hit save. And that's it. It created a new employee, which is me. Now I'm going to create a new asset. Again, it created some tests assets, but I want to create one for this use case. So I'm going to create a new Blackmagic cinema camera. It's going to be a 4K camera, and the type is going to be camera. Remember that we asked for all of this information. Remember when we created the types? Then the location is going to be in, let's say, San Francisco. And then I'm going to find for a picture. Let's see if I have a picture here. This is a picture of my office here, just for the sake of testing. And there you go. We just created the new asset Blackmagic cinema camera. Now let's create a new request. So the asset ID is going to be the camera that we just created. The employee is going to be me. The reason is I want to record for a DevFest. The location is going to be Costa Rica, which is where I am right now. And I'm going to return it back, let's say next Friday. And there you go. We hit save, and the request is created. So just like that, AppSheet and Duet AI created an entire application for managing assets for myself without having to code any single piece of, without having to write any single piece of code. Now we go back to my email, you will see that here the request was created. There you go, request record for DevFest, and here it is. Basically, this is the asset ID, the employee ID, the reason, the location, and the return date. So now we also have even notifications that is going to make my application to be even more powerful. So this is one huge example because we just created an entire application in just a matter of seconds. And it can go beyond this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to deploy this application because everything we have done so far is just on the testing sample. And if we want actual users to actually try it and to have a URL that anybody can visit in my organization, we have to deploy it. And this is what I just did. Now, one of the cool things that I can do is I can turn my application into a chat app. That means that people can interact with my application without having to go to the application itself. So they can interact with my app in a conversation manner. And that's even more powerful. So I'm going to create a new app. And let's see if it works. I'm going to enable it. This might take a couple of minutes. Let's see if it works. If not, we can leave it for after, but I really wanted to give it a shot. So when we set up a new chat application, what's going to happen is if I go back to my chat here, we are going to have an application just like this one that is going to be called Asset Management System. And I can ask for things without having to go to the app, to the actual application. So for example, I can create a new request for a new asset without having to leave the chat application. So I think I'm running short of time. I don't want to delay the other people's presentation, but just as a wrap up here, I can just set up my intents. So people, for example, can say, I want to create a new request, and it's going to be asking for the same information that is requested when we create a new request. So it's going to ask for the asset, the employee, the reason, the location, all in a conversational manner. And that should be it. So uh, that's for me. Thank you so much. I hope you learned something today. I encourage you to take a look at Duet AI AppSheet to play around with it. And please don't be a stranger. Please reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can visit my YouTube channel where I create videos and tutorials about all of this in more depth. So also please make sure to subscribe if you want to learn more. And thank you so much to the community. And I hope you learned something today. Hopefully at the end, we'll have some place for questions. And I'm more than happy to answer any question.
Thank you, Kevin. I totally agree. Like when we have so many information quickly and a lot of the information in this century, and then what is our mission? And then thank you for introduce this really beginning friendly Google App Sheet, so everyone able to code in, and then they can create their own app and then help our life more efficiency. So thank you again, and let's welcome Madonna. Could you share your screen, please?
Yes, yes, yes. I am working
Thank
on
you.
that. Let me see. Let me know. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect, perfect, perfect. Give me 1 second. Just I'm gonna do one more thing here. Choo-choo-choo. I hope everybody's day is good.
It's good. It's good. It's our one more week. We will have a Thanksgiving break, so everyone's hanging there.
Hang in there. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. Okay, pretty perfect. Okay, so one thing that I do know is that I know I can't see most of you today, but I can see through the small camera. So, hi everyone. I hope you've had a great afternoon. Our talk today will be on building high quality Android applications. So, I am an Android engineer, as I mentioned before, and I've been doing Android now for a decade. Now, the reason as to why I picked this topic is because I do know that from time to time we don't have many people that actually go into mobile development. But if you're there and you're thinking about a career, you might want to try it out or even build your own app on your own time, which is super cool. Please try to consider mobile. And also I'm hoping this talk will help you like see what are the important things that the modern world is looking for these days, because unlike before where would you just launch your application, nowadays people are very picky and people want apps that flow and do not stop. Now what we'll be going through in this talk is just a couple of good practices, and I just show you a little bit of code on what's important and what we as Android engineers look for when we are coding, and also some best practices. And let's get started. So as I mentioned today, that's what we're looking at. Now, before we even go very far, there's something that I'm really happy about, and that is the ability of new developers using Java Compose. Now, Java Compose is just a new way of building UI in Android. It takes away from the XML. I don't know if any of us here have done that. If I was doing this talk in person, I would definitely ask if anybody has built with XML before. But a backstory is that before we used to build UI using XML, which was like a markup language, kind of like HTML, kind of, but not exactly HTML, but it's called XML. But then when we were building with that, it was pretty hard and not easy to follow through. But when Jetpack Compose came, things are now easier, and I feel like I can use the same language throughout. Now, if you are considering mobile development, we normally use Kotlin now. I know Java was the first language, but we stopped using Java. Now we use Kotlin, and Jetpack Compose is entirely in Kotlin, which makes it much easier for you as a developer. Like you're using just one language to build the views and also to write your logic. So you can see that work made easier. Now, things that I always look for, especially as an Android engineer or somebody that then for the mobile application, a good experience is good navigation. Why is navigation very important? Now, if you somebody comes to your application today and they are trying to navigate from point A to point B and they cannot do that, what is the first thing they do? They will either kill the app or background the app or just delete the app. So something that I like to mention that with now modern application, it's very, very important that when you're building, have in mind that it's important to have efficient navigation, and Jetpack Compose offers that. So something that I wanted to call out. Something else that I like to call out is managing state with Jetpack Compose. And I'm hoping this talk will not going to be very, I know it's not very introductory friendly, because I know some terminology you might not have heard, but when I talk about this particular specific topics, when you also, if it really makes you feel interested, look into these particular portions and topics, and then just dig deep into yourself. Now, something that is very important in managing state is, normally when apps like well managed states, it can lead to, like, let's say, a variety of user experiences issues that can be very annoying and frustrating. I've been through that. Like, for instance, you have an application that you've downloaded, and then the UI is very slow, it's unresponsive. It means that the state is not very well managed. Now, something else that really annoys people is, let's say, inconsistent UI. Like, I moved from here, I went here, and then when I came back, I navigated somewhere different, or I saw a different UI. That can really be sad, like, for people that are using your app, which is something that you don't want to do. So it's very, very important that when we are building for the new modern world, we make sure that we think about state way in advance. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. When I was building Android applications back in 2014, which was the first time that I built my first one, I did not think about this, because all this was not laid down. Like, this foundation was not there. But right now, with the new developers and new documentation, there's a lot of foundation. And I feel like right now, if you decide to do mobile as your career, it's going to be pretty straightforward and pretty easy. I know, of course, coding and the logic might be tough, but it's going to be pretty straightforward and easy. Now, something else that I like to mention, which is very, very important, is having a reactive UI update. Reactive UI. Why is this very important? Is because, mostly, for those who don't know, if you're building for mobile, unless you're building an app that's going to store data locally, most of the time we pull from APIs. So it's very important that when we're pulling from APIs, we want to update the data immediately once the API is updated back in the back end. So reactive UI updates are very, like, are a fundamental aspects of even why we decided to start using Jetpack Compose. And this is where the UI automatically, let's say, updates and responds to any changes in underlying data or state. So it's pretty very important when you're building for the modern world to think about these things. Something else that I like to also mention is that ensure that you've scoped your state and composition. State hosting and data flow is very important. And also, I know that some of you here might not have heard these words, but view model integration is very important too, to think about when you're building for the new modern world. Now, I know I can't see you all to just ask a quick question, but I would have wanted to know, by show of hands here, how many of us here have even tried mobile to begin with? But maybe I can just keep continuing, because I don't want anybody to get lost in this, because I know the terminologies can really feel very in depth, and I would hate to lose anybody. Now, so something else that I also always like to consider when I'm building for the new mobile world is ensure that I have immutable and immutability benefits. And why is this important? It's basically because Jetpack Compose promotes the use of immutable states, that is reducing errors and enhances predictability and testabilities. And also, immutability ensures that each state snapshot is independent, preventing unintended side effects. So why is this important? Again, going back to the user centric. So to me, I think about the user a lot when I'm building any kind of applications, because what is the purpose of it? If the users come to your application and all of a sudden they're looking at it and they're like, what are you trying to do? Or why is this dark? So very, very important to think about those things. Now, I'm gonna skim through a couple of these and just go directly to one thing that I like the most, which is optimizing for performance. Now, when you're building for the modern Android world too, it's very important to optimize. Make sure that your application does not take up like 100 MBs. I mean, think about it. If I go to the Play Store and I'm trying to download your application, and to me it says 100 MBs, what is the first thing you're going to do? You're like, what is this app doing? So when you're building for the new modern world, it's always important to have that in mind. Like always optimize. Make sure that performance is fast, make sure that it's easy and it's very light. And you can utilize the latest compose tools like the dev tool, compose profilers, and just follow animation best practices, because I do know here animation takes a lot of processing. So if you follow the right, let's say, structures and the right just techniques that are already there, it will become very easy to make sure that the performance is very fast. Because again, you don't want applications that users are downloading and they're like, what are we trying to do? So performance is very, very important. Something that I like to mention is that when you have, let's say you're trying to build an application like Twitter, right, where you have lots of data, you need to ensure that you're optimizing lazy loading and pagination, also optimizing image loading, making sure that you cache your image. And from time to time, you use your Compose UI inspector for just inspecting how your UI looks. Because sometimes one thing that I do know we always tend to fall into is, as developers, when we are building for applications, we don't know the hierarchies in our application. So we end up tying so many functions and also images to one. Like, let's say if a navigation has like several places, we end up tying the UI, and then it becomes harder to like even manage the threading, and then it leads to applications not responding, which leads to it either crashing or stopping, which is an experience that you don't want to give your users. Now, let's look at the code a little. Oh, so something else before I even jump to coding is testing is very important. I know most of us here, you might be in school, but know that when you're testing is very, very important. Ensure that you test your code. Without testing your code, then you're not 100% sure that you're deploying great code. So for the modern world, please ensure that when you're writing your applications, it's good practice to write tests. And this is both unit tests and UI tests. I know there's a lot of debate on the kind of tests you should write, but I always recommend, if you can do both unit tests and UI tests, very important. Now, unit tests just cover unit based. This can be view models or simple functionalities, whereas UI tests cover the UI functionality. For instance, if I click a button, ensure that that button is clicked. Is that button even displayed? So that is UI testing. And now let's look at the code. So the goal of this particular small app that we are building, which is going to be pseudocode heavy, is to be able to like when you get your own time, I can share these slides. Just see if you can play around with it and see if you can complete the app. But the idea was to make it more exciting. So where you can see through the best practices, and after that, you can go try to see if you can build your own application that follows the best practices. Now, the first thing that you need to know is you need to ensure that you have a build.gradle, and in the build.gradle, you will need to add this particular dependencies. So why are we using this? Because we are using the modern way of building applications. So another question that I get a lot as an Android engineer and an expert is, Madonna, should I start with XML or should I start with Compose? I would highly recommend, if you're building a new application from scratch, go with Compose, because every application now is trying to utilize Compose in the existing code base. I do know there's a lot of legacy code, but with Compose, it's pretty reverse engineerable, where you're able to kind of like use both. So I would highly recommend, if it's a new application, go with Compose. So this is what you will need. Now let's build the user interface. So to begin, you will definitely need the main screen, for instance, and the art composable annotation provided by Jetpack Compose, and it indicates that the following function is a composable function. Now, in Compose, our composable functions are building blocks of the UI in Jetpack Compose. That's how I think about them myself. And what they do is that they describe how the UI should look based on the current state and data. Remember the state we talked about. Now, in this particular composable function, we have our function main, which takes in an item, which is list of item. It has on an item click listener. Now, the way I can read this code is that this declares a composable function named main screen, as you can see there. It takes two parameters, that is a list of item object that will be displayed in our UI, and then on item click, which is a lambda function that takes an item as a parameter. Now, this function will be called when an item in the list is clicked. When you clicked that item, we display them. Now, the scaffold, and trust me, you will see my face light up when I talk about compose. It's simply because in XML, you would have gone and started finding like 100 lines of code, not codes, but snippets of codes on XML on how to do the top bar. Jetpack Compose solves that for us, which is it offers the scaffold. As you can see there, it has the top bar, and it's very straightforward. So the top bar, you can declare your app bar, and then the title is item list. Now, a scaffold is like a compose component that provides a basic structure of a screen. That's how I think about it. That includes the top bar and the content area. And it really, really simplifies the process of creating common UI patterns, which I highly recommend when you get your time to look into it. And then the top bar, as I've mentioned, is just the top bar. When you look at the app, I know most of us here have apps. I also would have liked to ask how many of us here are using Android as compared to iOS, but they're pretty similar. So something else that I want to mention before I even go very far is that you'll notice Jetpack Compose, which uses Kotlin, and Swift UI, which uses Swift. They're very, very, very similar. I did actually a talk comparing how they look, and someone was like, "Wow, Madonna, I can become like an iOS engineer and an Android engineer." I told them, "Yes, pretty possible right now." Now, let's look at how we can build our item list. So our item list, which is a function and still a composable, takes in again the list of item, and then when we click, we do that. Now, the lazy column, which is so good, is a compose component for efficiently displaying vertically scrolling list of items, and it only composes and lays out the items that are currently visible on the screen, making it suitable for large lists. For instance, if we have like a list that has 100, it's pretty easy to just use the lazy column to just lazily load them through. Now, inside the lazy column, the item function is used to iterate over the list of items, as you can see there. And for each item in the list, following block is executed, which is the list item. So what are we doing there? So I'll show you my list item block, which actually, as you can see there, is a compose component that represents an item in a vertical list, and it is used to create a list item for each item in the list. So again, I've mentioned I'll share my slides, so when you get time, just go create a simple app and try to see if you'll be able to display some data. Now, let's implement a little bit of navigation, because we need to be able to navigate from point A to point B, like I mentioned. Now, why did I mention navigation in the beginning? Because it annoys me, and I believe it annoys many other people, users of apps. So right now it's pretty easy to build with Compose, because this is how you declare navigation. Pretty easy. So we have a sealed class that's a screen, and this sealed class, I can say, declares, let's say, is a special kind of class in Kotlin that represents a restricted hierarchy in which subclasses are defined within the sealed class itself. Now, it always has a primary constructor that, like a single parameter route. As you can see there, I have that, but it can always take as many. I have a talk where I talk about bottom navigation and showcase how it can take like 3 items or even more than that based on your need. And then, as you can see there, we have the object main screen main, and inside the screen sealed class, there's an object declaration that you can see there named main. An object in Kotlin is a singleton instance of a class. So we're kind of like just defining also what those are. And then there, as you can see, after the detail, I'm able to navigate with my item IDs. I know that can sound pretty complex, but I'm hoping that it's not very complex. But definitely, it's a good start where you can get set. I also didn't get very in depth, but hopefully, it's something that people can understand. Now, here, as you can see, we showed we need to be able to navigate to a detail screen. And here, as you can see here, we have the detail screen, which has the item ID, which is a string, takes in a string. And then when we've defined the item, which is the get item details, and then we pass it there in that particular function. And something else that I love about Kotlin, it's so easy to understand and read. I mean, look at that code. It's so beautiful and so clean. And I'm like, I want to keep writing this code. And to be honest, my face lights up because this is the first time in like my career, my Android career, when I started doing Compose, I can sit down and write code without Googling. Like, I don't remember the last time I Googled. I wonder if it's doing it for so many years or it's just getting comfortable with Compose. So it's pretty cool to do it. Now, when you want to handle any navigation events, this is what you want to make sure that you do. So let's say that nav controller dot navigate, and then you have to pass the route there, and it will take you to the route that you want to do. And then finally, you want to fetch the data. Is the data that will be displayed when we get the item here. For you can see, you can put your API there. And I said this because you can display any list. And actually, I just want to give a tip. When you're interviewing, the reason as to why I picked this particular program to showcase is because in every interview for Android engineers, because I've been there, you get like listing an API, and you get like a project where you're told to fetch something from the API and display in a list and just click the detail screen. So that's why I wanted to create a simple project to showcase anybody that wants to get started in this, how it can be pretty easy now with Jetpack Compose. And then that's how our data class item looks like. As you can see here, we pass it a lot, that list of items. When I show here, I'm like clicking on my other screen here because I'm looking at this one, but that's where you can see the items. But here, as you can see in this best example, each item has an ID of type string and a name of type string. And then we adjust the properties based on the characteristic of our item once we get them. And then we display them to our screen. And then finally, in our main activity, which is now the entry point of our application, this is where you'll call it, and then you'll handle all your stuff. Like, it's pretty straightforward. Once you're done, you should be able to call this there and then display once you get the items. As you see there, val items equals get item, the function that we created. And then after that, we do main screen, which was the fastest screen that we created. And then handle items, navigate to detail screen. Once you're done, once they've loaded, you can show them. So yeah, thank you so much for listening to this short talk. I hope I did not go over time, but one thing that I wanted to mention is it's always a learning journey. So if you have any question about Android, don't forget to connect with me. I'm always responsive on LinkedIn and on Twitter, and I will help guide you in the best way. And also, I wanted to mention this is a book that I wrote too. I cover a lot of how to build components and applications in the modern world, and it's been super cool so far. And that's how you can connect with me. Thank you so much. I hope I don't go over time, Sharon.
No, it's okay. Thank you so much. We will share this slide later. So we definitely encourage our members to build their own website when they have free time. And don't forget, like, we build a website. Build an app is for the purpose for the user century. And also don't forget to testing. Without testing, your code will be messed up. So thank you for your sharing. Please, thank you so much. Please stop sharing the screen. So Chen Chen, could you stop?
Totally. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you guys see that? The share screen? Should I just?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. And by the way, we turn off the light just because it's easier to see the slide, and we will turn on. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Sounds good. So, hello, everyone. Thanks for having me today. I'm Chang Chang. And like I mentioned before, I work with large language models in AI safety. And if you're like most people, I have no idea what that means. So I actually help an AI safety research lab in Berkeley to communicate their findings to the wider research community. And I also work on the technical side for an AI safety education website, building their chatbot. So that's me. Let's move on. Okay, there we go. So this talk, it's going to be roughly divided into two parts. I'll start off with sort of an overview of LLMs or large language models, and then we'll kind of dive into the Google stuff, okay? And so this field is kind of notorious for like tons of jargon. And like Kevin had mentioned, can be overwhelming. So I'm not assuming any specific background in AI, but I I gave it away just now, but I hope we all know what LLMs stand for, right? So it's large language models. And if you know that, then you're all set. So today, let's find out what are language models and how did they get so large. So my goal is to kind of give you an eagle's eye view on how all this stuff fits together. So language models are part of NLP, or language processing, and that's what I originally studied back in college as a computational linguist. But things have completely changed since then. But the holy grail of NLP is to be able to talk to computers just like you're talking with other people, using only human or natural languages. So no need for all those unnatural computer languages. So way back when I first started, the linguists would create all these expert systems with like hand coding zillions of all these grammar rules and all the vocabulary. So it was really tedious work, and the results were mediocre at best. And then they started using more statistics. So how does that work? You shall know a word by the company it keeps. So this was a simple idea that was actually profound. Turns out if you start counting words and looking at what other words are around it, you end up learning tons about the language. And so all those relationships are what makes a language model. So you kind of think about like learning languages as children, right? So you're immersed with all the sounds and the sentences, and eventually you kind of just know what feels right or wrong. So even if you don't really know why, you've internalized the statistics for your language model. And then neural networks actually have been around for decades, but they really took off in the last decade. So computer vision is really what got most of the attention, but language models actually made huge gains too. So word2vec was a Google invention using these high dimensional vector embeddings. So that's neural networks had learned like a bunch of these numbers or vectors from linear algebra, and you can represent the meanings or relationship of words. Then you could actually do vector arithmetic and solve analogies. For example, if you take the vector for king and queen, the distance between them will give you the gender relationship. Then you can add that vector to the vector for woman, and that will get you the vector for man. So that's pretty cool if you really think about it. And so just by looking through tons and tons of text, the model figured out all of these relationships and analogies on its own. So there's no more need to hand code all that stuff. So this was a total game changer. Then other neural networks around this time are RNNs, GRUs, or LSTMs. If you've never heard of them, no big deal, don't worry about it. But those were early models where they're kind of slow and forgetful. It's kind of like the sweet granny, right? It's kind of struggling to understand all those words and just by getting confused by long sentences. So even if you gave her more information, it's like, what? So those older models, even if you made them bigger or trained on more data, it didn't really improve much until transformers were introduced by Google in 2017. So I'm pretty sure by now everyone's heard of GPT. So that actually stands for generative pre-trained, and the T is actually transformers. So it's just another kind of neural network that has this self-attention mechanism. And so now the models could actually look at everything all at once. The long-term memory, not a problem, right? So you give it Wikipedia, piles of books, and these models just kept improving. And it turns out they're super data hungry. So you throw the whole web at it, blogs, tweets, codes, everything. Another problem with those older models was they process words sequentially, one word at a time. But the transformers, they could actually process things in parallel, like zip through it all. So the models got bigger, running faster, training on more data, and just kept getting better. So you can ignore all the gory details, but here's what a transformer diagram it looks like. So there's an encoder on the left, a decoder on the right, and heard of GPT and Palm only had the decoder side. And generally the bigger models have this exact same architecture. I know it might be a little hard to see, but there's an NX that just means those blocks, the gray blocks, they can be stacked by n times. So the original transformer had 6 blocks, but GPT-3, for example, has 96 blocks. So we've talked about language models, but what makes them large? So size is usually measured by the number of parameters or neurons. And a large language model generally has at least like 1 or 10 billion neurons. It's not quite the same as a human neuron, but for reference, our brain has about 85 to 100 billion neurons. And recently they found actually beyond size, the amount and quality of the training data is important too. And training, it's kind of this game like to fill a blank or next word prediction. So think of, you grab a book, you pick a sentence, you give the first few words to the model and it tries to guess the next word. You show it the actual word, right? Then it'll update its neurons to try to do better. So you keep guessing and updating until the model gets really good at this. Like we say, roses are red. So the next word's probably like violets are blue, right? Kind of feels like a fancy autocomplete. But you think about when you're talking with someone who completes your sentences. That's supposed to be like a sign of deep mutual understanding, right? So now imagine that's a computer is doing that. So back to GPT. The P is for pre-trained. What does that mean? So in the past, we would train like a bunch of these models as specialists, like answering questions, classifying things, or translation. But GPT is a generalist, pre-trained to understand human languages in general. But these base models, they're huge, right? Cost millions of dollars, trained on tons and tons of computers over months. But once that's done, the base model can actually be fine-tuned for specific tasks. And that fine-tuning is actually really fast and cheap. So how does that help? Well, GPT-3 was actually released 3 whole years ago, but ChatGPT, which is just a tweaked version of that. So why did it suddenly go viral? Well, the secret was the fine-tuning to respond to instructions and conversations. And that actually brought out these hidden or emergent abilities. And suddenly it became super helpful and behaved more human. So I hope you've kind of gotten a sense of how cool LLMs are. I think like Madonna, my face lights up when I talk about these. So now let's dive in to see what Google offers, right? So they actually had a bunch of LLMs. Some were for research, so not all for consumers. And Lambda came out 2 years ago, and that could carry a conversation. And it was actually so good that an engineer claimed that it was sentient, and that made headlines. So we'll take a closer look at some of the other items on this list. But Palm's the latest LLM that was released last year, actually now on version 2, and it's supposed to be comparable to GPT-3. And again, these are some of the features, that's what's grabbed everyone's attention. So that makes people so excited about LLMs, right? So these emergent abilities, I think it's worth digging into some more. So Palm 1 came in 3 sizes. So the smallest is about 8 billion parameters. It could understand languages, answer questions, and do some simple arithmetic. Watch this. This is pretty cool. So the medium had 62 billion parameters. And just by growing the size, things got better. And it also learned to do translation and summarization and some other stuff. Then the large model has 540 billion parameters. And it could do coding, reasoning, and even more stuff. So again, the models were never explicitly taught or trained to do these things. The abilities just kind of emerged with size. And Palm 2 is actually smaller than Palm 1, but performs even better. So its training data is higher quality with multiple languages. It's kind of like instead of having a bigger brain, it just learned with a better teacher. And since LLMs understand human languages, we can start interacting them through prompts. Just like functions you would pass as an input, it returns the generated output. And so there's other things that you might want to include with the prompt. So the context tells the model how to behave. For example, I've heard people complain, oh, it generates too much jargon. Well, did you prompt it to avoid jargon? Or you can say, explain it to me like I'm 5. Okay. So examples can also improve performances. Like the older models, they could actually only do math or translations after we gave it a few examples. That's called few-shot learning. And if it worked with only one example, then it's called one-shot learning. But for many tasks nowadays, no examples are needed at all, or that's called zero-shot. But often giving it some examples still just help you get better results. So another thing I've heard is, oh, I wanted the output in this format, and sometimes it's right, but sometimes it's not. Well, that's where you give it some examples of the formats you want, so that will help. So you might have heard of prompt design or prompt engineering. Those are whole new fields. There's like books and classes teaching you how to interact with LLMs. But the basic idea is do what works for effective human communication. LLMs, they're not mind readers, at least not yet. So just be clear and explicit on what you expect. So Palm, it powers a bunch of Google products, right? There's apps like Bard, Duet, and you've heard AppSheet, right? So I'll focus more on the developer tools specifically. Maker Suite is for prototyping with the Palm API. Nice thing is no background in machine learning is needed. This nice little website, it's a playground for you to quickly build apps. And so at the bottom of the website, there's a little button there that says create an API key. Just remember it's there, we'll need that later. But at the top, you see there's text, data, and chat prompts. So the text prompt is the basic format when working with LLMs. You give it the input, the generated output is, well, you see it at the bottom in purple there. And so there's a few examples, samples for inspiration on things that you can do. So this one here, it summarizes a paragraph, but you can try writing poems, translation, and coding. So the data prompt is kind of similar, but it's more for structured formats like the few-shot examples. So this sample generates analogies, right? So at the top, you give it some examples of input and output that you're expecting, and to test it out, you put your text in green, the generated output is in purple. So you would use this screen for if you know that the format of your input and output are predictable. Then that last option there was chat prompts. That's for building a chatbot. And so the things that you need to know is the context is the chatbot's character. It's role playing. So here it's an alien, but it could be an expert scientist or have it teach like Socrates. And down the left are some examples of outputs you'd like. So the messages in the middle column are the actual conversation history, right? It's a list that gets updated as the back and forth messages. So how does all this help you build an app, right? So on the far right, so there's settings. Those are the parameters that you would send to the Palm function. So you can tweak the values and see how your output changes. And at the very top right there, you can click on the button that says Get Code. And up pops this dialog box with the code on how to call Palm. And so you can choose your language, run it in a Colab notebook, or copy this into your favorite editor. And so the Palm libraries, it runs on all these languages. There's documentations that has more examples, but I'll use Python today. And at the end, I will share some code and more resources. So most of the parameters, they have default values that actually just work fine, but understanding some more concepts will help you get better results. So remember I had mentioned that next word prediction? Well, actually, LLMs don't really use words. They use tokens. So they have this fixed vocabulary size, maybe like 50,000 tokens. And in English, the common words are tokens, but longer or less common words might be made out of multiple tokens. And so a tokenizer would convert text into the tokens. And there's many tokenizers, right? OpenAI has a tokenizer that's different from Google's. And then you'll hear things like, oh, how many tokens was the model trained on? Or how many tokens can fit into a prompt or the context window? And you pay by how many tokens are in your prompt and the generated output. So you should understand that tokens are like words or subwords. And you also remember LLMs work with the statistics and probabilities of tokens. So there's a temperature setting that affects diversity or like creativity. So you can set it to 0 and you'll get the most probable output, which is good for like factual answers that are right or wrong, right? But if you want like a fun fictional story, then you can set the temperature higher, closer to 1.0, and top K and P, they're also related to how next tokens are picked for diversity. And so usually you only need one output, but you can change a max output, and that lets you compare multiple outputs. And so the PaLM models, they come in 4 different sizes. So why wouldn't you just pick the biggest and bestest, right? Well, it costs more and it might not run on those smaller Android apps, right? But since if we're using the PaLM API, that sits on Google's cloud. So the Bison models are generally what we'll use here. And to use PaLM, you'll need that API key we mentioned earlier. So click the button from before to create an API key in a new project. It's totally free. You'll get this long sequence, which you should treat as a password. And this will give you access to the PaLM API, and Google will track how you use it. So the next, you can install and import your client library. So here's the Python example. And you put in your little API key there, green. And so now PaLM actually has 3 endpoints. It's kind of similar to the prompts that we saw before. So we'll do an example for each of these. So the text endpoint is for basic action, right? You send a prompt and you receive a generated response. So the prompts can be really long with lots of examples, but the interaction is just there and back. And for that, we use PaLM generate text with the text Bison model. And that's it. I mean, it's just a few lines of code and you're using PaLM with access to the large language model, right? So the chatbot, it allows for many back and forth, right? So you call PaLM chat with the chat Bison model. So this manages the conversation details for you. So we already saw the context is like the model's character role. Messages are for tracking the conversation history, because the model's actually just sitting there stateless, living on the cloud. So it has no idea about you or your conversation. So you kind of need to send it the messages and let it know, hey, this is what we've been talking about. So this code here sets up the conversation. And then after that, the conversation just continues by calling response and reply. So just with a few more lines of code, you've got now the core of a chatbot. And then finally, I actually use embedding a lot in my work for building applications and also in research. So the calling PaLM generate embeddings will return this vector or that list of 768 numbers, and that represents the meaning of the text. And using something called a cosine similarity function, you can quickly compare and find related content or things with similar meanings. So this is super useful. And time for safety settings, of course. Every call to PaLM, it's automatically checked on these 6 categories. And so a probability will be rated for each of the categories. And by default, if anything comes up with like a medium or high chance of harmfulness, those will be blocked, but you can adjust this. And as promised, these are the resources, the blue bit.ly link going to DevFest 23_PaLM. So that will go to a notebook that has all the code snippets and the links below. So right now, PaLM API is actually still free, probably until like the end of the year. So they'll eventually start charging. So definitely check it out while you can. And if you get stuck, Bard, chatbot, or Duet AI will help you solve your problems. And so that was PaLM, but next on the horizon is Gemini. That should be coming out soon, hopefully, I think early next year. It should be comparable to GPT-4 with some impressive multimodal features. So it'll work with video and audio, so we can see and hear the world. But It's a crazy and amazing time for AI, and LLMs like Palm are very powerful, and they're only just going to get more powerful. So please be sure to embrace this power safely. And I can't wait to see what y'all build. And so thanks so much. This is me. Feel free to connect and stay in touch.
Well, thank you so much, Chen Chen. I learned a lot in AI. AI is a really hot topic in our school because we have one professor. She's like really enjoying AI, and then but now we are only looking at the grammar, the RNN one. So this is all new grandkid. It's a really cool AI knowledge for us. So we are really enjoy it. And now it's Q&A time. Is anyone have questions? You can just raise your hand and I can loud like yell the question out, or you can come forward. Anyone have a question? Yes. Okay. Could you hear them? Oh, I can move forward. Okay. Here. Okay. Can you say?
Hello. Oh wait, I think it's audible.
Oh yeah, you can talk.
Okay, so I have a questions for Kevin. So I know through your presentations, Duet AI helped us automate a lot of tasks. And I'm a computer science major. I want to learn more about coding, and I want to become a software engineer in the future. And I wonder if Duet AI can help me in any way while I studying in school, like coding on my project and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for your question. Yes, definitely Duet AI. And for example, something that Chen Chen was talking about at the end, all of these are GPTs in a way. ChatGPT itself can help you learn to code, but it's very broad in terms of the context. Now, the cool thing about Duet AI is that a certain amount of machine learning algorithms that are trained to specifically show you things about Google in a specific. And it can even build things for you. Like the example that I show you is just one thing, but in the future, Duet AI, it's pretty close to start building even infrastructure. So if you're looking to learn how to code, definitely Duet AI can help you to do that, but it's more focused on the context of any Google product. So for example, let's say, I want to host an application written in Python. What would be the best case service to use? And Duet AI can tell you, oh, is your Python application serverless? And you can say yes. And then Duet AI can give you the answer. Well, you can use, for example, App Engine or Cloud Run. And this is how you create an instance. This is the command line interface command that you have to run. And you will have the entire infrastructure to run your Python application. So it's definitely, Duet AI is more focused on infrastructure and yes, coding as well, because you can download the free plugin for your IDE if you're using Visual Studio Code or whatever IDE is going to work for you. And you can ask things about any of the 20 plus programming languages. So yes, I will definitely encourage you to download it. It's free. You can try it out in Google Cloud or in your own computer and ask questions. Take it to the edge. Don't hold yourself. Ask whatever you want and re-ask for things. And definitely is going to help you on your career. That's definitely for sure. And I wouldn't say that you have to feel bad about getting AI to help you. I will say it's a tool and we have to use it for our day-to-day. And definitely something that you can help you to strive in your career and grow even faster.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to try it out.
Sure.
Oh, they can see me.
Yeah, I can see.
Hello. Hi. Can everyone hear me? I have a. Hi. Thank you for all the talks. That was amazing. I have a question specifically for Madonna. Thank you for the talk. What I understood about Jet Compose is that it's a UI toolkit
Yeah.
that's like based on a Kotlin programming language, right?
Yes.
Okay. So one question I had was that when you're using, like when you're trying to use Jet Compose, I guess like what kind of IDE, like what kind of platform do you use? Because I know I've been working on like Swift UI like in the past,
Nice. Hmm.
and I know we use like Xcode and stuff, but like I
Hmm.
was wondering if there's like a similar thing for Jet Compose and Kotlin programming languages.
Such a great question. And I you made me feel guilty about not mentioning it in advance. That's why if I was there in person, I would have asked. But that's a very good question. So when you're trying to build mobile applications, we use the Android Studio. It's called Android Studio. So for anybody that's interested in to get started with Android, check out Android Studio. It's free to download. It's actually open source too, and that's why I like open source because you can actually contribute. But it's actually powered by IntelliJ. I think if you've used IntelliJ before, you will notice the similarities in Android Studio and IntelliJ. So that's what we use. We use the Android Studio IDE.
Okay. Thank you very much. I also have another
Sure, please.
question.
Yeah.
That's, I guess, not about like specifically about
Hmm.
uh, the developer tools and stuff, but I guess more on your experience as a
Sure.
mobile
Hmm.
app developer. Like,
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, like,
Hmm.
what it's like to work as a professional mobile application developer,
Yeah.
like as like especially as a team, because
Yeah.
um, when I was working on my Swift project, I was working on all on my own. So
Yeah.
I was writing my Swift UI code. I had
Yeah.
all my functions done. I did everything.
Hmm.
So I was wondering like how it looks like to work as a team in a professional setting.
Wow. Yeah, that's also a great, great question. Now, number one, we have the rule of collaboration. In every working environment, there's always collaboration. And so the way it works is that we have, so everywhere I've worked so far, we've followed the agile methodologies. Now, agile methodologies is where we ship software within a 2 week sprint. So what happens is that we come together with the product team, and then the product team sets the tone for what needs to be out there for that particular sprint. And this is just us having like a sprint goal. Like, let's say this particular sprint goal, we want to release this particular feature. Now, what happens is that now we sit down, we start doing something called like it's think about it like a refactor or a session where you think about so which code needs to be written, right? Who's going to write this code? So when we sit down as a team now, we decide, okay, Madonna is going to pick up this code, and then I agree, like, yes, I'll pick it. Sometimes people don't pick other parts if they think it's complex. So if you're a software engineer, they always look up to you, like to say, to raise your hand first. So that's something I've also experienced. But other than that, we use Git too to collaborate. I don't know if you know about Git, the version control.
Yeah,
So
we've been.
nice, perfect. So from time to time, you might find that if you work for a company, mostly banks use Bitbucket, but I feel like startups and other companies use, let's say, GitHub. But also, I think bigger companies use different tools too, because it different security reasons. But yes, that's how we collaborate. You assign a ticket, you work on your ticket, and then based on that, you send a pull request. It's called a pull request to either the GitHub or the Bitbucket, and then somebody reviews your code and then approves your code, and then it's merged in. And I feel like that's how many of, let's say, mobile works, to be specific, and also others. I feel like if I was doing, let's say, a project in Web 2, that's how I would work. Because normally it's just incremental codes that get shipped together and then packaged together, and then there's a release at the end of the sprint or whichever time like your team decides they need to release it. But that's the process. It's pretty nice.
Okay, well that's good to know though, because I'm
Yeah.
also kind of interested into mobile
Nice.
application development. So
We
yeah,
don't have
thank
many
you.
people interested, so I'm happy you're interested. I mean, we do have many developers, but I do feel like right now everybody's running to AI, and I'm like, we need mobile engineers. Everybody's gonna use the phone.
Yeah,
It's here to
because
stay.
I actually started like my, I guess my computer science
Mhm.
uh how do you say
Yeah,
career like
yeah,
with Swift.
nice.
So yeah. So I am a little interested into those mobile application development stuff.
Yeah,
So
and just to
thank
add to it, I feel like since you already have like a background in Swift, trying to move to Compose, it's going to be, trust me, because it's so similar, you'll be shocked. Like you can be now like a mobile engineer that builds iOS and Android at the same time. It's
Mhm.
amazing. Like
I was
like
looking
I'm
at that.
building. I don't know if I can show my app. I was building. So I have my company and I'm into real estate, and I was building like the real estate app that we need, and I'm building with Compose. Like I'm building it. Like it's so amazing. So I was just looking at it today because we released our internal testing where people can actually start testing, and it's seamless. Like it's, I don't know if you can see. Oh, hold on, I'm gonna try to remove the effect, but allow me to just share because it excites me a lot. So you see here, so this is the app. It's so like Jetpack Compose makes things so seamless, and then you can be able to navigate to a screen. You can view, let's say if you click on that, you can see the properties there. Super cool. It's just cool
Wow.
stuff. Yeah. And for me as an engineer now, building that, I'm able to just go to Swift and build pretty fast too, like because I know what I'm doing. It's unbelievable. But I'm an expert in Android because I concentrated in Android first. So something that I've also learned over the years is that once you know one technology very well, the rest come easy.
Well, hopefully that's true. But yeah.
No, it's true. It's true. With time, they all come pretty easy.
I think I'll give Jet Compose a shot. But yeah,
Super cool.
Thank,
thank you so much.
thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Thank
I
you.
was wondering, do you have any other questions, like with the other topic? Well, if not, actually, I have one question about the AI, the training data. I with Chen Chen, I really like how you described it. Like, it's not like we only look at like how we training data is not like we not for like bigger brand, and actually now we have the better teachers. And then I really like this quote because I think it's really interesting how to think at it, because every time we always think about, oh, we need to have like 64 billions and parameters, so we will have get a better answer. So what is your idea about this? We only have like at 8 billions parameters, and how we can get a better teachers by that way.
Yeah, actually, this is very, very recent. That something that they've only found, I think, within the last year, because when they trained Palm 1, it was still the idea bigger is better. And it's only been research in the last few months that they've realized, if the Palm 2, what they did is they deduplicated and just made sure things are cleaner. There's also research out there, I think Microsoft, maybe Meta also, because as they're doing open source models that are smaller, is in order to get it smaller, is they I think there's a few models out there that they're actually much smaller but are comparable in some of the benchmarks. And so they would use like GPT-4 or maybe GPT-3 to say, looking at the data, like training it to generate code, saying what code examples would be most helpful to instruct us, like modeling, so cleaning up the data set so that it's more focused to teach certain things. So instead of like just dumping everything at the model, just be a little more focused on the data set. So there's like several research papers, and it's only within the last year or maybe even the last few months that's come out. So this is pretty a new way of approaching things. And I think as it scales, that's why I think OpenAI and Google, they're stopping to release how big their models are, because they're realizing it's not just bigger is better. There's other things that they're tweaking to get the improved performances, and now looking at open source and trying to get things smaller and efficient.
I'm really looking for it, because I think they will be pretty neat. Like, because like based on the AI, everything we try to start like narrow down and then just more parallelize or more specific what information we need. So I think there's really a cool goal, like we can approach it. So I think this is close to our time, and I just want to have a short like to go for today's topic. So we actually talk about Pomo Power Suite. We have a consumer, which is through AI, so we can link with our Google App Sheet. So then we can easier to build the app, and also for beginner really friendly. And also the other Palm Power Suite is developer tools, which is marker suite. Then we also can build an app easily, and then there are 3 different type of the way we can interact with. And then there's a lot of playground, so we should definitely check out the coding. And the last one, don't forget it, is like we can actually build our own app through Andrew, and then and then on the mobile, because well, since everyone feel like, oh, laptop, mobile, and the iPad maybe it's all similar, but actually mobile still more small size, so it's really efficient. We still able to build a better mobile, and then don't forget like optimizing. Like look at when we look at the compose, so the code become neat, skin, and then they have a fast and easier way to coding. And thank you for 3 speaker. I was wondering, do you think we can take a picture? I was like, maybe our member can get closer, and then we can just have a screenshot like that. Well, but go. What? Sophie? No, I'm sorry. I was finding a way.
I was also taking this because it's dark out here. It's night now.
Oh, wow.
Like,
Everyone find your spot. Let me screenshot. What? Wait a second. No. What? My head.
oh
Wait a second. Let's count for 3. 3, 2, 1.
no! Yay!
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you too. This was fun.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah, thank
Love
you so
meeting
much.
everyone.
It was
Thank
a
you.
pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin.
Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Bye.
Enjoy. It was a pleasure.